Hi, I'm Julian. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the idOS. The idOS is a decentralized storage and access management protocol. And that means as a user, you can store your own data and move across Web3 to different ecosystems, to different dApps. But more importantly, you can move to different financial modules, or as we call it, OpenFi. So OpenFi is the idea that we bring open source into banking, or that we rebuild banking with open source non-custodial structures. So you're kind of debundling parts of the bank to be deposits, lending, all of those different cards, all of those different financial applications. We believe that there is one big part missing, which is identity, so that people can easily move from one application to another. OpenFi for me means that you can really, just like an application on your phone, install different features or modules that allow you to do financial transactions as well. And this is kind of like a browser moment. So like in the early 90s when we developed the browser, and suddenly you could take a look at simple to build websites. We didn't know what was going to happen there. We didn't know what people would build so that others could look at it. And I think we are in this point in time where we finally have that browser and it's coming together, but we just do not know what people will build with it. And that's the superpower, because suddenly everyone can build. You do not need to have to invest 20 million to get a banking license to just be able to start, right? And maybe to add another analogy from the beginnings of the internet era, maybe even a little bit before, if you're looking at operating systems. You used to have those closed source operating systems. And I don't even mean closed source in opposition to open source, but in opposition to being a platform. And this is a concept that we just cannot grasp nowadays anymore, because of course, if you are buying a Mac or a computer, you're able to just install applications on it. But back in the days, only the original manufacturer was able to push those applications to the machine. And when that changed, when open platforms became available, it all unraveled. It all unraveled towards an open platform type. So this is why we just do not even remember that it used to be different. Now, if you look at banking, it's still the same bucket. It's still those monolithic banks where you onboard once, and then you're supposed to use all of those different applications that bank chose for you. And we have a landscape of different little kingdoms where only their own applications are allowed. Now, if you converge that into an open stack, you can just pick whatever module, whatever feature, whatever product you would like, and stack them up together. And for that you need identity, and this is what we provide. As a user in OpenFi, it's similar to your experience of the early internet. You have few things available to you, and those things are great. Like, I would recommend everyone to go check out the Monerian bank account. I love that product, and you suddenly can combine it with a Gnosis Pay debit card. This is amazing. This is things that I can actually use in crypto, and it brings me an advantage compared to other products, because suddenly you have an application like Zeal that is coming out of nowhere, that is building a super cool front end. Now, they didn't need to ask anyone to include that and to build that. They just did. And so can you. So I think the exciting part right now is for the builders. Back in the days, the homepage builders. Nowadays, the people that want to take those modules to build something cool. Do I know what it's going to be? I have no clue. But we will also see different types of applications that we would never think about. Like, for example, payment infrastructure in Africa. Some of us have really no exposure to it, and for some other people it's their everyday life, where it's actually really hard to pay for things, where it's hard to just transfer money from one place to another. And so what you allow is for a segmentation and a localization that we haven't seen before, because prices drop significantly and access increases indefinitely, so that just about anyone that has a specific problem, and it could even be a niche problem, can solve for it. And so just like trying to predict what people will build in terms of homepages, I think it's impossible to predict what people will build in OpenFi. Some flagships will become true, some things that are obvious. Some, what we would deem obvious, will never happen, and some, the biggest parts, we can't even conceptualize right now. The biggest challenge of OpenFi today is, contrary to popular belief, not regulation, I would say. I think that we have frameworks now in place that, again, contrary to popular belief, helps us as an industry be able to do things properly, but also to have clear rules that we can follow, that we know that when we do, we are in the clear. I believe that it's a matter of time and a matter of connecting different people so that they understand that at the very different other corner of Web3, there's someone building something that fits in really neatly with this product that another person is building on another ecosystem. The cool thing now is they can actually combine that. You build an analytic tool for your portfolio over here, and you build an automatic investment a bot that runs on your self-custodial account. Great, you can combine these to lend more visibility to what's happening there. You can, for example, build saving rules yourself. Every time you pay for something, that you put $1 and put it into your savings account. And it just becomes so modular that we will see a lot more people building with those tools and testing them out. When I entered Web3 in 2017, we already had people building identity, because it was one of the first use cases that were mentioned, even as far back as probably the Bitcoin white paper, is to decentralize user information, so that people have self-custody over it and control. And it never really worked. And when we started, we had the big guys like Consensus, Uport, we had Sovereign, and a bunch of others. And I think that in the first wave, we had, again, monolithic approaches where we built software to make it available, but then we never followed up. And identity is not something that you just build and someone will come. You need to have the ability to fill this ecosystem with life, so that you have someone that is trusted, providing verifiable credentials, for example, or attestations, and you need to have the consumer side. So it's actually very complex. So we first learned it needs to be serviced, and monolithic structures don't work. Then the second thing that we noticed is that in the industry, we all went for attestations because we wanted to have it in a privacy-preserving way. But attestations don't solve for the major pain point and use case that we have today, which is compliance. Which means it's not about like making all of DeFi have to do KYC. No, what I mean with that is, like, if we want to go out of our bubble, out of the bubble of people that are technically savvy to use those tools into the real world, we need to we need to register and follow rules that those people gave themselves. I think it's actually a question of respect and also consumer protection to make sure that those regular folks don't get hurt. I think it was amazing that we had the sandbox because it allowed us to innovate really quickly, and it's always going to be there, and I think DeFi will also pave the way. But for us to really go into the mainstream adoption phase, we need to go back to the actual use case of crypto, which is payments. And this means giving financial services, offering financial services to regular people. Now, attestations don't work here because it's not enough. So next thing was we went for identity wallets, but it makes things even worse because you need to then also convince the wallets to implement something to hold that data. And eventually people just didn't really care. The pain point wasn't enough because we were talking about proof of personhood, but do I really care as a game if I have 90% bots in there? Right now, no one does, and so you also don't move. And I think that there is a timing component that makes it so appealing now, because the pain is just too much to bear, because we've got AI completely wrecking any type of incentive model, governance model, and on the other hand we have the regulator sweeping in, requiring tougher identity on some parts, but, and this is more important, we have this big promise of OpenFi, and people really want to get into it because we're sick and tired of just like building in our small bubble. So now what we do different is we have this compliant decentralized storage mechanism where people can delete their own data. And you do not just rely on taking away incentives for data storage, but you can actually tell the nodes, go and delete my data, and the proof of stake consensus makes sure that that data is actually deleted, otherwise the node that doesn't process your data request according to the idOS protocol will get slashed, and they will desync, and they will be out, and they will not have a chance to get back in. So that's what you really don't want to mess with. Now, the other aspect is usage. We have been talking about user incentives for quite a while. And I would call it the newest trend in identity, where you pay people $2 to get to sell their identity. Now there's a theory in economics that actually won the Nobel Prize. That's Akalov's theory of a lemon market, adverse selection. So that means you will pay people $2 for their identity. Who's going to do it? People will do it that believe $2 is a lot of money for them. So you have a self-selection towards people that tend to not have too much economic value ascribed to that identity. On the consumption side, people will notice. And the ones that will consume that data will only be able to pay very little because they realize that the economic value here is very little. So that makes the price drop even lower, making the economic value of those users even lower. And it's a race to the bottom. So it's not a sustainable model. So you really need to lend utility to your identity protocol. It really needs to, that's the only way how you can make it work. And it's different from other crypto incentive models where it does really work. You can incentivize usage if you tie it to, for example, volume or liquidity or something. Here it doesn't work. So we really needed to come up with a way to assure usage, because it's the side of the two-sided marketplace that you need to solve for. It is the user side, it's not the user side. So what we came up with is that we ask all of our prospects and clients and ecosystems if they would like to form a consortium. And this is what we did. So today we are also announcing the idOS consortium with ecosystems like Arbitrum, like Circle, Ripple, Near, Gnosis, LF0, Radix, and we are super amazed that they came together because they are seeing this pain point. They are seeing it's time. It's kind of like a bad signal on your wall saying, hey, let's go and build and push the ecosystems away from legacy KYC providers towards finally having a decentralized identity available to us. So the way that the idOS connects to other ecosystem and dApps is rather simple because this is how we build it. We never wanted it to be a monolithic chain. So what we did is we connected it to the ecosystem. So for example, the gas fees can always be paid in the native currency, in the native gas currency. And the only thing that we need to do from the protocol perspective is to make it understand the private public key cryptography that the specific ecosystem uses. So obviously that's quite easy with EVM. Sometimes not as simple with non-EVM ecosystems, but also rather easily works. I mean, if we're talking about Near and LF0 and XRP Ledger, then you get a hang that it also works there. On EVMs, it's sometimes we also need to see that some message signing parts are in place, but it's more a matter of weeks than months. My wish for the Web3 industry is that we focus on what we set out to do, disrupt the financial system and bring open source into banking and finance in the next 10 years.